Why do the most ruthless among us often rise to the top? Why do those who lie, manipulate, and step on others seem to accumulate power, while the honest and kind-hearted struggle to get ahead? This paradox has haunted humanity for centuries, but perhaps no one confronted it more directly, or more controversially, than a Florentine diplomat who lived 500 years ago. In 1513, Niccolò Machiavelli sat in exile, tortured and discarded by the very political machine he had served. As he wrote by candlelight in his countryside villa, he penned observations so shocking that his work would be banned for centuries. His crime? He dared to describe power not as it should be, but as it actually was. And what he revealed about human nature continues to disturb us today, because deep down, we recognize its terrible truth. The world Machiavelli inhabited was one of constant betrayal. Renaissance Florence, despite its artistic splendor, was a snake pit of political intrigue. Alliances shifted overnight. Yesterday's ally became tomorrow's assassin. Popes waged wars. The Medici family ruled through a combination of patronage and poison. And through it all, Machiavelli watched with the cold eye of a naturalist studying predators in the wild. What troubled him most wasn't the violence itself. It was the hypocrisy. The same princes who attended Mass on Sunday ordered executions on Monday. The merchants who preached Christian charity destroyed competitors without mercy. Everyone wore masks of virtue while wielding daggers beneath their cloaks. This disconnect between appearance and reality would become the cornerstone of Machiavelli's philosophy and his warning to future generations. Everyone sees what you appear to be, Machiavelli wrote. Few experience what you really are. This observation cuts to the heart of why terrible people often succeed. They understand something that good people struggle to accept. In the game of power, perception matters more than reality. The successful manipulator doesn't waste energy trying to actually be virtuous. They simply perfect the appearance of virtue while pursuing their goals with ruthless efficiency. Consider the modern workplace. The colleague who takes credit for others' ideas while maintaining a reputation as a team player. The executive who lays off thousands while speaking passionately about corporate family values. The politician who campaigns on integrity while accepting bribes behind closed doors. These aren't anomalies. They're following a playbook that Machiavelli identified centuries ago. But here's where Machiavelli's insight becomes truly unsettling. He argued that in a world full of bad actors, the purely good person doesn't just struggle, they become victims. A man who wishes to act entirely up to his professions of virtue soon meets with what destroys him among so many who are evil. It's not enough to be good. You must also be wise to the ways of the wicked, or they will devour you. This creates what philosophers call the sucker's payoff, the terrible reward awaiting those who play by the rules while others cheat. The honest businessman who refuses to bribe officials watches corrupt competitors win contracts. The ethical journalist who won't sensationalize stories gets overshadowed by those who will. The faithful spouse stays home while their cheating partner enjoys secret thrills. In each case, virtue becomes its own punishment. The psychology behind this is devastatingly simple. Bad actors operate with fewer constraints. While good people limit themselves with moral boundaries, the unscrupulous enjoy full freedom of action. They can lie when it benefits them, tell the truth when it serves their purposes, show kindness as a manipulation tactic, and deploy cruelty as a tool. This flexibility gives them a competitive advantage in any system that doesn't actively punish such behavior. Modern research confirms what Machiavelli intuited. Studies show that individuals with what psychologists call the dark triad traits, narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy, are overrepresented in positions of power. CEOs are 4 times more likely to be psychopaths than the general population. Why? Because these traits, lack of empathy, willingness to manipulate, comfort with deception, can be advantageous in climbing hierarchies. Men are so simple and so ready to obey present necessities, Machiavelli observed, that one who deceives will always find those who allow themselves to be deceived. This isn't because people are stupid. It's because we're wired for cooperation. Most humans assume others share their basic moral framework. We project our own honesty onto others, creating blind spots that manipulators exploit. The corporate world provides endless examples. Consider the rise of Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos. She built a multi-billion-dollar company on pure deception, convincing investors, board members, and the media that she had revolutionized blood testing. Intelligent, experienced people fell for her act because she perfectly embodied what they wanted to see: a young, passionate innovator changing the world. By the time the truth emerged, she had already reached heights that honest entrepreneurs could only dream of. But Machiavelli's warning goes deeper than simple observation. He argued that in certain environments, being good isn't just disadvantageous, it's impossible. When surrounded by those who will use any means to achieve their ends, maintaining pure virtue becomes a form of self-destruction. Hence, it is necessary for a prince wishing to hold his own to know how to do wrong, and to make use of it or not according to necessity. This creates a terrible dilemma that philosophers call the dirty hands problem. To protect the innocent, must leaders sometimes act immorally? To preserve a just society, must we sometimes employ unjust means? Machiavelli's answer was uncomfortably pragmatic. Yes, the alternative, allowing evil to triumph through inaction, is worse than getting your hands dirty in defense of the good. Yet, this is precisely where Machiavelli's warning becomes a trap. Once we accept that good people must sometimes act badly, where do we draw the line? How do we prevent ourselves from becoming the very evil we sought to oppose? History is littered with those who began as reformers and ended as tyrants, justifying each moral compromise as necessary for the greater good. The French Revolution provides a chilling example. Robespierre began as an idealist, passionate about liberty and justice. But faced with enemies of the revolution, he embraced increasingly brutal methods. The man who once opposed capital punishment eventually sent thousands to the guillotine, including many former allies. His descent illustrates Machiavelli's darkest insight. In fighting monsters, we risk becoming monsters ourselves. This dynamic plays out in smaller scales every day. The honest employee who starts cutting corners to compete with cheating colleagues. The faithful partner who begins lying after discovering their spouse's deception. The idealistic politician who accepts their first bribe to fund a worthy cause. Each compromise seems justified in the moment, but collectively they transform good people into the very predators they once opposed. Social media has amplified this phenomenon exponentially. The platforms reward those who generate engagement, regardless of truthfulness or ethics. Outrage, deception, and manipulation drive more clicks than honesty and nuance. Those willing to exploit these dynamics amass followers and influence, while those who refuse to play the game remain invisible. The incentive structure itself favors the worst actors. Everyone admits how praiseworthy it is in a prince to keep faith and to live with integrity, Machiavelli wrote. Nevertheless, our experience has been that those princes who have done great things have held good faith of little account. This observation feels especially relevant in an era of fake news and alternative facts. Those willing to abandon truth as a constraint can shape reality itself through repetition and conviction. But perhaps the most disturbing aspect of Machiavelli's warning is how it becomes self-fulfilling. When good people believe they must act badly to succeed, they create the very environment that makes such behavior necessary. It's a collective action problem of the highest order. Everyone would benefit from a more ethical system, but no individual can afford to be the first to disarm. This cynical cycle appears everywhere. In sports, athletes feel compelled to use performance-enhancing drugs because they assume everyone else is. In business, companies engage in questionable practices because they believe competitors are doing the same. In relationships, people play games and manipulate because they fear being vulnerable will lead to exploitation. Trust erodes, cooperation fails, and Machiavelli's dark vision becomes reality. Yet here's where careful readers of Machiavelli find unexpected hope. Despite his reputation as the teacher of tyrants, Machiavelli himself never achieved significant power. He wrote The Prince partly to gain favor with the Medici family. It didn't work. He spent his final years in relative obscurity, tending his farm and corresponding with friends. The master manipulator couldn't successfully manipulate his way back into influence. This failure might be Machiavelli's greatest lesson. Understanding how power works and successfully wielding it are different things. Those who reduce human relationships to pure power dynamics often find themselves isolated and ultimately unsuccessful. They may win battles but lose the war for a meaningful life. The corporate psychopath might become CEO but dies alone. The manipulative politician might win elections but leaves no positive legacy. The cheating spouse might enjoy momentary pleasures but destroys their capacity for genuine intimacy. Moreover, Machiavelli's warning contains its own antidote. By exposing the tactics of the unscrupulous, he arms good people with knowledge. Understanding how manipulation works doesn't require becoming a manipulator. It can simply mean becoming harder to manipulate. Recognizing power dynamics doesn't mean embracing them. It can mean working to create systems that reward virtue instead of vice. History provides examples of those who navigated this balance successfully. Abraham Lincoln, facing the moral catastrophe of slavery and civil war, made compromises that horrified purists on both sides. He suspended habeas corpus, censored newspapers, and initially prioritized union over abolition. Yet he never lost sight of his ultimate moral purpose, eventually achieving more lasting good than any purist could have managed. The key lies in what philosophers call moral clarity within pragmatic flexibility. This means maintaining clear ethical principles while acknowledging the complex realities of implementation. It means being wise as serpents, but innocent as doves. Understanding the ways of the wicked without becoming wicked yourself. It's a difficult balance, but not an impossible one. Modern game theory offers another perspective. While individual bad actors might prosper in the short term, societies with high trust and cooperation consistently outperform those dominated by manipulation and deceit. The Nordic countries, with their emphasis on transparency and social trust, achieve better outcomes than societies where corruption is endemic. Good systems can constrain bad actors and reward good ones. This suggests that Machiavelli's warning, while accurate about individual dynamics, misses the bigger picture. Yes, the worst people often succeed within broken systems, but the solution isn't for good people to become bad. It's to fix the systems. This requires collective action, institutional reform, and often tremendous patience. It's harder than individual manipulation, but ultimately more powerful. Men are so simple of mind and so much dominated by their immediate needs, Machiavelli wrote. But perhaps this very simplicity contains wisdom. Most people aren't master manipulators and don't want to be. They want to live honest lives, form genuine relationships, and contribute meaningfully to their communities. The fact that this remains true despite all incentives to the contrary suggests something profound about human nature. The worst people seem to succeed because we notice their success more than their failures. The flashy businessman who builds an empire on lies makes headlines. The thousands of honest entrepreneurs who build sustainable businesses through integrity don't. The manipulative politician who wins through deception gets attention. The countless public servants who quietly serve with honor remain invisible. Our perception is skewed by the very visibility that manipulation seeks. Furthermore, success itself requires redefinition. If success means accumulating power and wealth, regardless of means or consequences, then yes, the worst people often succeed. But if success means living with integrity, building genuine relationships, contributing to society, and sleeping peacefully at night, then the calculation changes entirely. The tyrant in his palace might envy the peasant's contentment. Machiavelli's true warning isn't that we must become evil to succeed. It's that we must understand evil to defend against it. We must recognize that in a world where some will always choose exploitation over cooperation, naive goodness becomes complicity. We need what Martin Luther King Jr. called tough minds and tender hearts, the ability to see clearly without becoming cynical, to act strategically without losing compassion. This might be the ultimate message hidden in Machiavelli's cynical observations. The worst people seem to succeed precisely because good people allow it. Through ignorance, inaction, or misguided idealism, we create spaces for predators to thrive. But armed with knowledge and united in purpose, good people can create systems that reward virtue and punish vice. It's not easy, and it's not pure, but it's possible. The choice, then, isn't between Machiavellian manipulation and naive virtue. It's between understanding power dynamics and being controlled by them. It's between strategic goodness and ineffective goodness. It's between fighting intelligently for a better world and wishing futilely for one. In the end, Machiavelli's warning serves not as an instruction manual for evil, but as a wake-up call for good. The worst people will always exist, and they will always seek power. The question is, what will the rest of us do about it? Will we retreat into private virtue while the public sphere corrupts? Will we become the very evil we oppose? Or will we find that difficult balance, eyes wide open, hands occasionally dirty, but hearts still pure, that allows good to triumph not through naivete, but through wisdom? The answer to that question determines not just individual fates, but the fate of civilization itself. For as Machiavelli knew, and as we must never forget, in the eternal struggle between good and evil, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to believe they cannot win.